The billionaire father watched as the black waitress let his disabled son lead her in a dance step, and his life changed. Silence fell over Manhattan's most exclusive restaurant, heavy as if it had weight. The clatter of silverware froze mid-air. Conversations cut off. Dozens of eyes shifted toward the small gap between two rows of white-clothed tables. Under a chandelier that spilled down like a waterfall of light, 10-year-old Liam Marshall, his legs bound in gleaming steel braces, trembled with every breath. He lifted his head, extended a hand, his voice so faint it needed the piano's melody to carry it. "Will you dance with me?" The one he asked was Maya Ellis, the only black waitress at Kingsley's, her white apron creased from endless shifts. "Sir, control your child." Mr. Blake, the restaurant manager, cut through the air like a blade. "This is inappropriate. This is not a dance floor. Staff are not here to entertain children." At the VIP table, Grant Marshall hedge fund titan, one of the richest men in the country, froze, throat-tightening. Tonight was the first time he had brought his son into public since the accident. 2 years earlier, a brief collision that had stolen half the motion from the boy's legs. The bitter thought rose, a mistake bringing him out. "Liam, sit down." The command, low and sharp, had always been enough. Maya didn't move. 5 years on the job had taught her invisibility before the ultra-rich tray, held at the right height, steps, measured smile, fixed voice, pitched to never graze a client's ego. But tonight she didn't step back. Her eyes bypassed the manager, paused on the father, and settled on the boy's still extended hand. "Mr. Blake, with your permission, my shift is over." She untied her apron, folded it neatly, and set it on a silver tray as if laying down a shield. Then, before anyone could stop her, Maya smiled and took Liam's hand. "I can't dance with an apron on." Grant shot up chairs screeching against polished wood. "What do you think you're doing?" "Accepting an invitation?" "Sir," Maya replied, steady. Snickers leaked from a nearby table. "She's insane. She'll be fired tomorrow." The pianist softened the tempo. The lights dipped a shade, the hum of the air conditioner whispered like breath. Liam lifted his foot. Metal scraped across the floor in a long, grating line that made the faint-hearted flinch. Maya didn't lead. She followed. She stepped half a pace back, matched his rhythm of breath, kept just enough distance so Liam could guide without being abandoned. Every time he wobbled for balance, she resisted the urge to steady him, letting his autonomy bloom in the fragile space between fear and hope. Somewhere in Grant's mind, another picture flashed his living room years ago, his wife Olivia, holding Liam from behind, spinning together like two notes sliding past each other. "It's not perfection, it's connection," Olivia had whispered, cheek pressed against their son's hair. The memory slammed shut like glass, leaving Grant with a soft ache money couldn't cure. Now, 3 faltering steps short, trembling but Liam's own cut through the air, thick with rules, wealth, judgment, and status. Each metallic scrape stripped a layer from the frozen surface of the room. Staff froze mid-motion, diners craned their necks. Mr. Blake's customer service smile stayed fixed, but his eyes screamed discipline. A woman whispered, "She's finished." A gentleman laid down his card, certain a tip could erase anything. But at the center only Liam's smile remained small. Frightened, then growing bolder, echoing like the only sound Grant could hear. And then, as suddenly as it began, the dance ended. Maya guided Liam back to his seat, bowed slightly, and said in a tone of adult gravity to an equal, "Thank you for asking me. It was an honor." She turned to leave. "Wait." Grant's voice called so strange he barely recognized it himself. "Your full name, Maya Ellis, sir." He nodded, repeated it as if engraving it on glass. "Maya Ellis." He pulled a card from his jacket, extended it. "My office. 10 o'clock tomorrow. The restaurant held its breath again. Maya accepted the card without changing her face, though her fingertips trembled not from fear, but from knowing she had just staked her livelihood against a system that could crush anyone who refused to obey. "Dad, what's wrong?" Liam asked softly, his eyes no longer hiding behind fear, but lit with the curiosity of someone finally being called by name. The question hung like an accusation, exposing the crack in Grant's armor. For 2 years, he had controlled everything: therapy schedules, trainers, diets, equipment, except the one thing: Liam needed the right to lead himself. By the kitchen door, Mr. Blake tilted his head just enough to mutter to another waiter, "Schedule someone to cover her shift tomorrow." Maya caught the look, did not flinch. She lifted her tray this time, weightless, glanced once at the chandelier, whose crystals quivered as if about to fall, and stepped into the cold draft of the back corridor where the scent of disinfectant mingled with drifting truffle oil. Before turning out the service door, she cast one last look across the room. Not of fear or surrender, but a calm acknowledgement 3 steps had tilted the axis of that room and perhaps of an entire life. Grant sat back down, jaw locked, hand resting on the table, but not touching his wine. He longed to command the world to resume louder music, more courses, bills tallied silence from his son. But each word weighed like lead. He suddenly saw Liam whole, not a burden, not a healing project, not a long-term investment, but a person. And somewhere Olivia's voice returned. "It's not perfection, it's connection." Grant looked at the card he had just handed out. It wasn't just an invitation. It was an admission that there were things he didn't know, couldn't buy. That night, Kingsley slipped back into rhythm quickly. But beneath the polished surface, everyone knew a boundary had been drawn. The clumsy 3 steps of a child had defied the invisible metronome of rooms where money had always dictated the beat. The next morning, Marshall Tower gleamed in the sunlight like a column of glass piercing the sky. The cool marble floor mirrored polished heels, the reception desk a sterile streak of white. Maya Ellis, in a navy dress, crisp white blouse, and a worn fabric bag, stepped inside like a low note in a string section pitched too high. Maya Ellis to see Mr. Marshall. The receptionist glanced up with measuring eyes, made a call hung up 18th floor. "Miss Quinn will meet you." In the elevator, Maya held her bag close to her chest and drew a deep breath. What she felt wasn't fear, but the sharpened focus of someone who knew the taste of instability. 3 jobs, a promise to her younger sister, a program gasping for life without funding. The doors slid open to a mirrored hallway where every step doubled itself as if for inspection. Ms. Quinn, mid-40s, structured blazer chin, raised at a flawless angle, smiled with practiced precision and invited Maya to follow. Employees passed by with quick glances, a black woman entering the executive wing enough to ripple the crema on their morning espresso. In the waiting room, once the door shut, Quinn lowered her voice with the air of helpful advice. "He fired you, didn't he? Powerful clients call, and people like you usually lose their jobs." Maya tilted her head, her smile faint but humorless. "People like me, meaning what exactly?" Quinn adjusted her glasses. "Staff who don't know their place." "And where exactly is that place?" Maya asked, her voice calm but firm. The phone chimed once Mr. Marshall is ready. The office consumed half the floor glass to the ceiling, Manhattan below like a toy map. Grant Marshall stood with his back turned, hands in his pockets, a posture trained in ownership. "Good morning, Mr. Marshall." Maya kept her formality, sat when offered. Then a calculated silence fell, the kind used as a weapon in high-level negotiations. Silence that makes others talk too much, reveal too much, apologize before they're accused. Maya counted her breaths, refusing to rescue anyone else's discomfort. "Education," Grant began. Bachelor's in Child Development, NYU. Graduate Studies in Special Education unfinished. A small twitch at his eye surprise. So you wait tables? I work 3 jobs. Restaurant, weekends at a bookstore. Tutoring when I can get students. Grant pulled a thick file, sliding out a photo of an old community hall, handmade posters on the wall, wooden floor worn thin. Freedom Steps. You co-founded it 6 years ago. Maya straightened. With my sister Zoe Ellis. Adaptive dance for children with motor challenges. And now Grant flipped another page, voice analytical, it's about to close for lack of funding. Maya didn't blink. Of course, the Marshall machine could strip her life bare in 24 hours. I didn't come to ask for money, sir. Grant's laugh was humorless. Fair enough. I want you to work for me. At your home, Maya asked. Therapeutic companion for Liam. He avoided the word assistant, choosing something that blurred care with expertise yet still carried the feel of property within household walls. I have the best specialists, physical therapy, neurology, psychology. Grant continued, eyes flicking to the photo frame on his desk, Olivia holding Liam as a baby. But what you did last night? He stopped, unwilling to admit that all his mountains of money hadn't bought his son's smile. Maya finished the sentence for him. It was just a dance. The first time I've seen him smile since the accident, Grant said each word, dragging through his throat. I don't need a dancer. I need someone who can do what you did follow without leading. He pushed forward the chess piece that had never failed him. I'll pay you 5 times what you make now. The air thickened. An ordinary person would calculate instantly rent, tuition, medical bills, old debts. Maya didn't. She stood. No. Grant froze as if someone had pulled his plug. You're refusing financial salvation out of pride, out of dignity, Maya corrected. And because your son deserves more than someone paid to pretend to care. I don't work for people who see skin color or class before they see ability. And I don't take money to buy a fix for emotional truth. Grant's expression shifted from surprise to challenge. He was used to buying time, silence, loyalty. This was one of the rare moments he touched something not for sale. Maya walked to his desk, set down a card, Freedom Steps. Tuesday, Thursday, 4:00 p.m. If you want to bring Liam, the first session is free. She wasn't begging him to come. She offered a path and placed the key on Liam's side, not Grant's. When she opened the door, Miss Quinn nearly toppled forward, ear pressed to the wood. You're insane. Turning down, Grant Marshall. Maya smiled. Maybe, but I'd rather be insane than property. She strode down the mirrored hall. In one reflection, her silhouette stretched like a silent note across an orchestra. In another, the city below flickered like a circuit board, beautiful, cold, unloving. Maya realized she had just drawn a sharp line on one side, money and control. On the other, dignity and self-determination. She had chosen the latter. Behind the door, Grant stood still. Quinn, his voice cut the air, get me everything on Freedom Steps. And block off Wednesday, 4 p.m. For the first time in a long while, a decision of Grant's came not from cost-benefit charts or PR positioning. It came from 3 steps the night before. 3 steps that exposed him to a question money could not answer. Did he want to lead his son or let his son lead himself? In the elevator down, Maya checked her phone, a text from Zoe. Another funding deal had collapsed. The center still owed rent. The studio mats were worn thin. Maya replied, keep Wednesday afternoon free. Leave the last frame on the wall empty. Zoe called immediately. Empty frame for what Maya looked at her own reflection, a regular woman who had just refused an extraordinary offer. For the future, she said, and closed the phone. In the marble lobby, the air smelled faintly of bitter orange. Maya stepped out onto the street. Sunlight spilled over the sidewalk like honey. Elsewhere, they would call it a beautiful day. For her, it was the day the powerful heard the word no, and that no opened a path no yes ever could. The Freedom Steps community warehouse sat at the end of an old industrial street, its red brick facade flaking paint, its silver roll-up door streaked with ancient oil. Inside, a newly laid tongue-and-groove floor still carried a hint of varnish. Warm lights spilled down in honeycomb bands. Hand-painted posters in marker and acrylic crowded the walls. Your rhythm, your rules. Every move counts. Lead when you're ready. The air had a gentle bustle. Children laughing wheels, whispering brace clips, tapping a backing track, keeping time somewhere audible but never bossy. Zoe Ellis, Maya's older sister, was tapping check-ins on a battered iPad, brick-colored hoodie hijab neatly tied. The moment a Bentley pulled up to the curb, her voice thinned to a careful hush. Okay, he really came. Zoe peered through the glass. Liam, in the back seat, fiddling with his brace straps, eyes darting. Grant sat rigid at the wheel, both hands clamped as if holding fast to a decision he hadn't yet said out loud. He won't come in, Zoe murmured, stacking paper cups on the welcome table. People with those glasses don't step into warehouses, they step into towers. Car doors popped. Liam turned his body, lowered himself to the curb one stair at a time. The braces squeaked, but he didn't ask for help. Grant got out too, gray sweater chinos, leather shoes polished enough to mirror the ceiling. The outfit tried to normalize him, but still flashed the gloss of privilege. Hey, Liam. Maya appeared in the doorway, no fuss. She bent to one knee, bringing her eyes level with his. Do you want to look around first, or head in and try a few new things? Liam glanced at his dad. Grant nodded the nod of a man who still trusted nothing but himself, but was practicing being an audience. In the main room, kids were practicing through unfamiliar rituals. A boy with a left prosthetic leg counted 1 and 2 and 3 on his fingers, while touching down with the right forefoot and sketching a circle in the air with his left hand. A girl in a wheelchair spun at a 3-2 ratio to the music, each rotation a sentence of breath. Twin brothers shared a resistance band pull-release like call and response. Looks chaotic, Grant said, eyes hunting for a template. It's structured, just not the kind you know, Maya answered, leading Liam to a section of floor taped into a grid. First rule, Maya told him, you lead, I follow. Second rule, if you change your mind, halfway fine. Third rule, if you stop, that's a move too. She set 2 cards in front of him, one with a wave line, one with a dot. You show a card, I match that rhythm. Liam looked down then up and didn't raise either card. He set them aside and opened, closed his right hand like a living metronome. Maya matched his hand exactly, no faster, no slower. Why not louder music? Grant asked Zoe, already perched on a folding chair. Because loud sound takes, it doesn't share. Zoe winked. Their breathing is the real soundtrack. A parent came over and greeted Grant, recognizing him from too many articles. First time, she asked in the tone of a shop-worn trade secret. Hardest part is standing still. Grant gave a tight smile. Standing still had always been his hardest thing. He was fighting reflex, adjust the brace guide, his son's hand order the tempo up, like in the rehab gym. In front of him, Maya did the opposite, half a step back, leaving space between her hand and Liam's to be filled by his decision. Watch your shoulders, Maya murmured to Liam, just loud enough for Grant to hear. High shoulders say tense, drop shoulders say tired, level shoulders say, you tell me? Liam's mouth tugged. Just right. Exactly, just right is today's tempo. He pushed one small step across the taped grid. Maya followed without correcting. When he shook his head at a wobble, she mirrored the same amplitude and then stopped half a beat before him, laying out a soft landing. "You can cancel a move any time," Maya said, "but try touching down with the tip of your foot, then rest a beat." A side door opened. Dr. Elaine Brooks came in cane with a carved handle, silver hair braided neat. She moved through the room like a lighthouse, no shouting, only appearing exactly where a child looked. Stopping by Grant, she smiled like greeting an old rival across a fair chessboard. "Mr. Marshall, 3 of our proposals reached your fund. 3 came back stamped red." Grant faltered for a beat, then matched the name to the face. "Dr. Brooks, I didn't expect you here. I coordinate research for Freedom Steps," she said, voice even as breath. "We track how a non-directive approach influences neural reorganization in kids with motor challenges." Research Grant turned to Maya, brow creasing on risk audit instinct. "I thought this was a community dance class." Maya tapped her toe inside the taped grid eyes, never leaving Liam. "It is. And it's also a pilot in autonomy-based rehab. We use adaptive dance to open pathways, but we don't pull. Anything done expertly can become another form of imposition, even expertise." The line hit Grant square on the ribs. He'd built a life on expertise beating instinct. Now someone was saying expertise could step back, and you were... "What in the research?" Grant asked Dr. Brooks. She smirked a quick, proud flicker. "Co-author." She tipped her head toward Maya. She left grad school to care for Zoe during a hard stretch, but the theory paper she wrote on self-agency and motor planning, if you'll bother to read it, forced us to redesign nearly half our protocols. Grant looked at Maya like at a strange new data point that had fallen onto his spreadsheet. "You knew who I was last night. From the moment you walked in," Maya said evenly. "But when Liam stood up, I knew the right tempo was performance, not presentation." Zoe handed Grant a flyer class schedule plus a QR code to anonymized dashboards charting GMFCS levels, independent steps, balance, hold times, self-reported anxiety, updated weekly. Numbers aren't to brag. Zoe said they're to prove that moving slowly is still moving, and that self-determination reshapes the brain. Grant skimmed it, hearing in his head the voice of an old advisor. "If you don't measure, don't believe." Now they measured, but not the way he was used to. They measured the pauses too. Grant looked back to the floor. Liam was playing mirror with Maya. He furrowed his brow. She furrowed. He dropped his shoulders. She dropped. He paused 2 seconds. She paused 2 seconds, not 1. Suddenly, Liam missed half a step, and his face pinched with embarrassment. Grant's father, Reflex, fired, stand reach. Before he could touch, Maya lifted her hand, not onto Liam, just into his line of sight, as a visual anchor. Liam, fixed on her hand, exhaled, touched down with his forefoot, held for 1 beat, lifted his head. The whole thing took 3 seconds, but it pulled out of Grant something like a nail he'd driven crooked into wood long ago. "Do you hear the backing track?" Dr. Brooks asked quietly. Grant listened. Not the speakers, but a scatter of micro-tempos, brace taps wheels fabric, brushing the floor, children inhaling, exhaling. That's the arrangement of autonomy. The kids don't follow the music. The music lays ground for the kids. She paused, looked him in the eye. "Your management style, if I may guess, is to define the beat and force everything to latch onto it. Here, we listen for the beat and follow it." Grant said nothing. Somewhere up in that glass tower, he had bought macro forecast maps and risk models greedy enough to be cruel. Here, before a child and a woman who refused to be owned, he was being taught to stand still. He swallowed something, turned his head just enough to hide the shine at the rim of his eyes. And just then, the side door opened, and a few press badges came in, cameras, strapped windscreens on their mics, professional smiles set. The air shifted shade like someone inching up the gain on a mixing board. Maya glanced at Dr. Brooks. The older woman nodded. It was time. Zoe motioned to a volunteer to drop the backing track to almost silence. No one rushed to explain. No one called begin. The outside world had stepped into the room. Now the room would perform itself. Grant felt his spine rise like he was about to sign something public. "Is this PR?" he whispered, his voice cooling to a familiar register. "No," Maya said, eyes still on Liam. "This is evidence." A girl in a wheelchair carved a wide circle. A boy peeled off a knee patch, touched down at 3 points, then looked up, grinning. After a string of steady beats, Liam stopped. He tipped his head to the right as if catching a filament of sound. Then he sat, hands on his brace straps. Small fingers worked each latch. The click was loud enough for the edges of the room to hear. Maya didn't intervene. She only shifted her center of gravity toward him, holding her axis like a landmark. Liam undid one side. Metal kissed the floor clang. Grant sprang to his feet. Half the room held its breath. Reporters hunched like cats about to pounce. "Slow it down," Maya said, but she didn't say don't. Her language avoided prohibition. "Breathe in for 4, hold 2 out for 6. Liam followed. His shoulders settled to just right. He set his right forefoot on the tape line, shifted weight, left, tried lifting the left heel, half a segment. Just that, then set it down. Second try, he cleared a full segment. Third try, a whole step short, shaky, but his. Shutters clicked. Someone's involuntary gasp broke open. Grant formed words, but they snagged between an old rule and a new lesson. Dr. Brooks tilted her head, narrating like a caption to a film strip. Motor pathways aren't only in muscle, they're in decision. This step isn't much longer than yesterday's, but he owns it. That's the rewire. Liam stood tall, exhaled long, looked at Maya. She nodded, no clapping, no cheer, just a nod like signing a contract between autonomy and trust. At the room's edge, reporters had locked in their mics, eyes ping-ponging between the boy who had just stepped and the billionaire who had just watched. The air tightened like a string pulled beyond pitch. Whatever Grant said next or didn't would define not just tonight, but the program's path. In the white space before the first question, Maya alone heard 2 sounds: the fallen brace and a massive door somewhere in Grant's glass tower creaking on its hinges. An old door to old ways was stirring to open or to slam shut depending on his choice. She didn't look at Grant. She looked at Liam as she'd promised from the start, follow him. As for power, its turn had come to learn how to follow. The first reporter's question shot out like an arrow. "Mr. Marshall, can you comment on your presence here today? Is it true?" The Marshall Fund rejected freedom. Steps 3 times, cameras snapped, microphones thrust overhead. In the middle of the frenzy, Liam, unaware he was standing inside a historic reel of tape, kept working through his new steps with absorbed focus. Grant swallowed hard. He was rich in the art of blocking, reframing, bending stories his way. But tonight, reframing would steal his son's moment. He glanced at Maya, the woman who had just taught him how to stand still. Then another instinct, an old one, stirred wresting control from the press before it drowned him. "Give me 2 minutes," Maya murmured to the reporters, then turned to Grant. "This way." She led him into a side room, no stagecraft here. White-painted walls, mellow yellow light, a slow ceiling fan. Along the walls, children's photos lined up each with a handwritten slip beneath seconds of balance, held weekly count of independent steps, self-reported anxiety levels shaded in circles, number of times a child requested a stop on their own. At the far end hung an empty frame, bare wood, nothing inside. "What is this?" Grant asked, voice still cold, but with a tremor at the edges. The future Maya replied. "A fully resourced center, 500 kids a year, not 50. A real sensory room, sprung floors, a music studio rest space for parents, an observation wing for researchers, and a scholarship fund so no child is left out because of fees. Grant's fingers pressed tighter on his folder. You staged this for the day the press arrived. Maya met his gaze. The dance wasn't staged. Liam chose to rise. I chose to follow. As for today's timing, yes. I seized a window. 4 months ago, when you canceled a meeting without reading our proposal, I promised myself I'd find another way to make you see us. You used my son for a stunt. Grant's voice dropped glacial. Not a stunt. Evidence. Maya spoke slowly. Each phrase set like stepping stones. She pointed to the wall. You love numbers we measure, but some things only live when you witness them. And you just did. The door opened slightly. Dr. Elaine Brooks slipped in, handing Maya a fresh printout headline, Revolutionary Motor Rehab Method, shows promising results, published that very morning in a rehab journal, the ink still warm. Hot off the press, she said, eyes flicking to Grant. What he had once rejected now had data. Then Zoe appeared, sliding a folder onto the table. Inside were 3 rejection letters with the Marshall Fund's letterhead, polite, polished, and equally cold. Maya lowered her voice. You have every right to be angry at being pulled onto a stage you didn't script. I was angry when my files came back unread. We're both standing here in a side room between 2 rightful angers. But out there, Liam just took his first owned step on camera. What we choose now will define that step. Grant's eyes settled on the empty frame. It faintly reflected his own silhouette, a man who always had answers, but not this time. From the hall, microphones rustled. The reporters had waited long enough. Back in the main room, the air sharpened. Questions, bristled lenses ready. Zoe brushed her hand on Maya's shoulder, lending a heartbeat. Dr. Brooks shifted aside so the kids stayed in frame. And Grant, he stepped forward. Mr. Marshall, did your fund really reject this program 3 times? Grant glanced at Liam, who was now helping another boy find balance. He paused. And then, in a rarity for a man like him, he lowered himself. The hardest thing for someone in my position, he said, is admitting when I was wrong. The room went still as if all the air had been drawn out. The Marshall Fund commits to 5 full years of funding for Freedom Steps and to building a rehab center based on the method of Dr. Brooks and Ms. Ellis. Flashes burst like fireworks. Zoe almost whispered, "Oh my God." Maya stood tall, her eyes shifting only a degree, as if acknowledging a river that had just changed course. Grant raised a hand to add, "One condition: Ms. Ellis retains full academic and methodological authority, free from corporate interference." That sentence locked a door. Most grants never locked autonomy. Maya nodded, not because the money mattered most, but because respect had landed in the right place. A reporter pressed, "You're not afraid to admit failure publicly." Grant exhaled. "What I fear more is being a father who can't keep pace with his son's new steps. That's all." It wasn't PR polished, but it was true, and it was timely. When the mics lowered, applause filled the room, not raucous but warm and thick like a quilt. Liam, still wearing one brace, ran short steps toward Grant and wrapped his arms around his waist. Grant bent down, pressing his forehead to his son's hair, saying nothing. On the wall, the empty frame still hung, waiting. Maya's eyes flicked toward it, and she knew tonight it already had a name, the moment the powerful chose to follow. 3 months later, bulldozers growled across the vacant lot where the old red brick warehouse once stood. A construction sign leaned in the wind-blew tarp, snapping. Blueprints stretched over a sawed wood table, a sensory room with the warm, flicker-free lights, a sprung floor with graded resilience zones, a music room with pianos and hand drums, wide hallways where wheelchairs could turn easily, a parent's rest corner, an observation suite with one-way glass so children wouldn't be distracted. Each page of the drawings bristled with sticky notes from kids, parents, therapists, lower the handrail, 3 cm warmer, lights, hooks for braces near the door, soft mat where falls happen most. Maya moved across the site like a conductor, without a baton listening more than speaking. Zoe managed logistics, Dr. Brooks coordinated with the research team designing protocols that honored privacy, yet held enough rigor for publication. Grant, astonishing even himself, showed up regularly, no entourage, no pretense. Sometimes he stood a long while before a doorway that was only a frame. One afternoon, Danny, the structural engineer, presented 2 options for shock absorption in the main floor. Maya pulled out her phone and called 3 parents and 2 kids to come barefoot test on the mock-up. Grant raised an eyebrow. Last time I saw clients walk a job site test was never. Maya shrugged. Here the users are the architects. Liam hopped, tapped his toes, frowned at the stiffer zone, grinned wide at the springy one. Maya traced red pen marks to his steps. Grant watched her pen follow his son's feet and realized this process started from the ground, not the spreadsheet. At night, the temporary meeting room glowed. Grant sat before a scientific paper layered with sticky notes, neuroplasticity, non-directive cues, intrinsic motivation, error-based learning. He underlined actually reading, not cherry-picking quotes for speeches. Maya slipped in set-down coffee. I never thought I'd be studying neural rewiring at 50, Grant said with a tired laugh. Different language, Maya replied. But the principle is familiar to a strategist. Don't impose, listen to the system's feedback, correct from the smallest errors. An email pinged on Grant's phone, Liam's former physical therapist rebutting. Dropping the second brace before 24 months is unrealistic. Liam had just suggested removing it and already taken steps without it in the studio. She says it's impossible, Grant muttered. You fired her, Maya reminded. You said she was wrong. You said she was wrong. I only pointed to the evidence in your hand, Maya said, tapping Liam's progress log. Grant's retreat from old habits was slow. Some days he flared back, ordering contractors to swap to prettier, slipperier materials, insisting on top-tier machines, too loud, pushing to cut children's adjustment time to hit an opening date. Each time, Maya asked one simple question. Is the goal for the child to see themselves, or for us to see ourselves? It cooled him faster than any leadership seminar he'd ever taken. A few times Zoe teased, "You're learning quick learning to stand still." One late afternoon, Maya taped the last set of posters in the hallway, archival paper, non-toxic ink, bold, warm font, your rhythm, your rules. Every move counts. Follow, don't force. Grant stood behind her long enough that she turned. Why don't you ever accept my apologies? He asked, blunt. Maya paused, eyes steady. Because you've never apologized. You redirected resources, you changed policy, you funded, that's compensation. Apology is posture, not strategy. Grant nodded no rebuttal. Fair, he said softly. The advisory council took shape. Parents, therapists, scientists, and seats reserved for children old enough to vote. By statute, funding carried no right to alter method. All public materials centered the voices of children and families. Data was anonymized, then shared openly with the research community once identifiers were stripped. Grant signed the charter without a tremor, because this time his signature bound himself, not others. Late at night the site hushed. Maya lingered walking the freshly plastered hallway, breathing the mix of damp gypsum and wood. She stopped before the empty frame just mounted on the wall meant for the progress gallery. Grant arrived minutes later, quiet. Tomorrow, he said, I'll bring Liam to see the site. He asked to hang a photo of his first step here. Good, Maya answered. But beside it, I want another photo Liam helping a friend. Grant smiled a rare one not performed for anyone. Fair, he echoed, and perhaps for the first time, fair meant I step back at the right moment. Outside, the city roared like a midnight jazz band. Inside, a space was taking shape for another kind of music, one whose rhythm came not from the metronome of power, but from the footsteps of children leading themselves. Just one stage remained before opening day, and when the ribbon finally split beneath the scissors, what would be inaugurated was not only a building but a stance, the stance of following. On opening day, a red ribbon stretched across the new glass entryway, midday sun pouring down onto the freshly cleaned sprung floor. The sign, Freedom Steps, Rehabilitation Center, hung modestly. No LED lights, no massive screens, just warm, legible letters set against the preserved red brick from the old warehouse history, leaving room for the future. The hallways were wide railings, lowered by exactly 3 centimeters at the kid's suggestion. The sensory room dimmed half its lights to avoid flicker windows tinted to filter glare. The music room stood open, hand drums, bells, pianos, flutes, all placed low, a miniature orchestra at safe volume. Maya Ellis stood at the edge of the main lobby, clutching a folded program timeline, breathing steady. Zoe circled, checking mics, reminding volunteers, water here, tissues there, restroom signs clear. Dr. Elaine Brooks buttoned her white coat quietly, briefing the research team on the open data recording protocol. Grant Marshall arrived 30 minutes before the press, walking silently through each room. At the one-way observation suite, he paused, but deliberately chose not to enter, turning back as if resisting the urge to peek. Guests streamed in. Parents, children, rehab doctors, a few reporters, and inevitably a cluster of donors sniffing the scent of prestige. A man with a glossy badge leaned close to Grant. We'd like to buy naming rights for the main hall 3-year package. Grant, a man who had built a life out of naming, fell quiet. Out of the corner of his eye, he saw Maya helping a boy tie his shoelaces the way he preferred. He turned back. No names, unless the name belongs to a child who's taken their first step here. The man smirked. You'll regret that. Branding is crucial. Grant answered calmly. Crucial somewhere else. The mic popped. Zoe signaled. On the low stage, Maya opened briefly. Today is not the ribbon cutting of a building. Today is the ribbon cutting of first steps. She stepped back. Dr. Brooks Rose gave 3 sentences, enough science, no theatrics. We use non-directive approaches to uncover the brain's existing pathways. Autonomy is the strongest stimulus. Evidence is mounting. Then she yielded the floor to the children. First performance, Liam and 3 peers. Not bolero, not waltz, not hip-hop. A woven score, step, pause, breathe, look, shift. Liam still wore a light brace on his left leg for safety, but he led the overall tempo. Grant stood back, hands clasped shoulders, low, the posture of someone present, not presiding. Halfway through, a short circuit in the music room cut the speakers. The hall stirred. Technicians fumbled. A reporter raised a camera, hungry for awkwardness. Maya didn't rush forward. She signaled stay still. Liam paused, a half-beat listened, then tapped his foot 3 times. The trio caught on. Floorboards became the metronome. Breathing became melody. Wheelchair wheels, rolling, became bass line. The piece continued, no speakers, no instruments on their own rhythm. Strangely, beautifully stronger. When the applause swelled, warm, thick, a reporter's voice cut sharp, Ms. Ellis. Some say this is a feel-good story to launder Mr. Marshall's image. A billionaire learns humility. Using your black face as emblem, what do you get out of it? The air cooled. Parents' eyes sharpened. Grant shifted instinctively, ready to block the blow. Maya lifted the mic, unflinching. If this is a PR story, then that dance at Kingsley's must have been the strangest casting ever since I didn't audition and nobody paid me. What do I get? Autonomy for children, decision seats for parents, open data for colleagues, and a funding clause no one, not even Mr. Marshall, can interfere with the method. She turned to him. Isn't that right? Grant's voice rang clear. Right? And if anyone tries to change it, I'll pull my own pledge. Another reporter pressed, Marshall, what do you regret most? Grant didn't look at the cameras. He watched Liam tying a girl's shoelaces, not learning fast enough to match my son's new tempo, and your proudest moment that he leads so others can find their own rhythm. Then the ribbon cutting. Zoe handed scissors to two children, a girl in a wheelchair and Liam. The crowd counted until Liam raised his hand, waiting for the girl to find her level. Snip. The ribbon fell to the floor with a crisp sound that cut through the room. In that instant, Grant stepped half a pace back, no cue, no camera, but Maya saw. A man of stages chose the margin. A father chose to be there. After the ceremony, branding hunters returned, offering media packages of Billionaire's Journey video. Grant shook his head. If you film, the parents, the kids, the therapists, and you, I'm the audience. They left scoffing. Maya whispered to Zoe, one layer filtered. Zoe grinned. More will come. Let the steps do the filtering. By day's end, as the crowd thinned, Dr. Brooks pinned the final charter to the wall, Follow, Don't Force. Beneath it, signatures of parents, specialists, and the crooked scrawls of children. Grant signed last, his pen slow, weighing each stroke. Maya glanced at the sheet, remembering the once empty frame. Now it brimmed with photos of first steps, and a new one, Liam, steadying another boy's elbow. At the corner of the frame, a small space was left blank. Zoe scribbled in marker place for the next first step. When the hall emptied, Grant approached Maya. No mics, no lenses. His voice low. I'm sorry, no justification. Maya nodded. Not with, it's okay only, I hear you. And in that moment, compensation turned into apology, not through action, but through posture. 3 months after the ribbon-cutting, Freedom Steps had already grown 2 satellite programs in district cultural centers, a children's hospital in the neighboring city piloting Dr. Brooks' self-agency motor protocol, and a private rehab school contracting Maya to train their staff. Zoe compiled a parent handbook, How to Set Family Rhythms, Non-Directive Language, Self-Reporting Tools for Kids. The anonymized dashboard expanded beyond GMFCS scores, now tracking agency moments, self-chosen actions, logged by parents and children with words or icons. Criticism came, of course. An op-ed in a trade journal penned by Liam's former therapist sneered, Too romantic, lacks variable control. Dr. Brooks replied in the Academic Register, preprint uploaded, larger, sample, clearer method, tighter stats. Maya didn't argue in print. She opened workshops for critics, inviting them to stand in a room for 45 minutes and try staying still. Some walked out halfway. Some stayed and blanched when they saw a child's first step emerge not from command, but from waiting just right. The Advisory Council faced a new wave of funding offers laden with conditions. One corporation wanted long-term sponsorship in exchange for tweaking the message, less talk about autonomy, more about victory, and overcoming for virality. Zoe's laugh was sharp. No, autonomy isn't a hashtag. Grant stood on the same side. If conditions touch method or language, we refuse. Someone whispered, He really has changed. Grant answered, I'm still learning. By now, Liam had shed braces most of the day, using only a light cane at night when tired. He attended regular school. The percussion club accepted floor taps as instruments thanks to Maya's advocacy letter. At a parent forum, Liam shared how his first steps often went off-tempo. Wrong isn't losing. Wrong is data. The line turned into stickers slapped on water bottles, notebooks, door frames. Kids in the program reminded each other after a stumble, "It's okay, we're collecting data." A journalist resurfaced the Kingsley story. What if Ellis had been fired that night? Maya answered, "I didn't have a plan B. I only had a plan to stand still long enough for Liam to lead 3 steps. After that, whatever I did had to match those 3 steps." The quote spread online mocked as romanticized rehab. Maya didn't respond. Zoe told the team, "Don't let the game switch arenas. Our arena is the studio." One rainy evening, Grant arrived late. The glass doors mirrored streaks of water. The halls were empty but for the softly lit first steps wall. He stopped at a new row of photos, a girl standing 3 seconds on her own, a boy unbuckling one brace, Liam guiding a peer to set his cane straight. Beneath each photo, the child's words, "Today, I decided to stop. Today, I switched my leading foot. Today, I asked for help." Short sentences but full of agency. Maya appeared beside him, rag in hand, wiping frames. Grant skipped his usual preface, "I used to think leadership was setting the beat and holding it until the piece ended. Now I see changing tempo can be leadership too if it's someone else's tempo." Maya nodded. "And stepping back is also a move." Grant smiled. "I'm practicing." Not wrong, just data Maya teased, and both laughed quietly. In a partner hospital meeting, an administrator suggested standardizing the protocol into a fixed set of exercises for easier scaling. Dr. Brooks stayed calm. "Fixing motions contradicts autonomy. We standardize principles, not movements." A doctor asked, "So, how do you measure by self-agency points who chose the tempo, who chose to stop, who chose to switch? And if no one chooses, then we wait. Waiting is an intervention." In the corner, Grant scribbled into his notebook, "Waiting. Intervention. Remember, not every day was smooth." One boy fell, trying 2 steps without his cane. Maya sat on the floor with him, rated his hurt on a scale of 10, named the feeling aloud the tears, then helped him phrase the next choice. "When do you want to try again?" He pointed at the wall. "Next week." On the dashboard, an agency moment ticked green. Zoe printed his words on a poster, "I choose next week." The quarter's climax was an audit from a major international fund. The auditors demanded a single success metric. Zoe answered politely, "We have functional scales, but success here is wide. A child saying no to an adult for the first time is success." The auditor frowned. "That can't be measured." Grant walked in, set down a dashboard printout. The column, self-initiated, stops climbing steadily. "This can," he said. "And if your fund can't grasp the value of autonomy, we'll decline that share of funding." The room softened. One auditor whispered, "That is data." By quarter's end, 3 cities were on schedule. A hospital formally shifted half its pediatric rehab caseload to the autonomy protocol. Liam wrote an essay for his school paper. "I'm not a hero. I'm a person with rhythm." It was pinned to the center bulletin board, a reminder to newcomers here, no one has to be an inspiration story. Here, everyone is allowed their own tempo. That night, as she locked up, Maya stood alone before the photo wall. In the far right corner, one small frame was deliberately left empty. Zoe had once asked, "What for? We've filled enough." Maya smiled. "To remind us there's still next week's first step." She switched off the lights. In the dark, the only rhythm was a guard's footsteps outside and somewhere in the city rain pattering on tin roofs. The city symphony carried on, but in one corner another rhythm spread the rhythm of following. The storm didn't come with thunder. It came with a fall. Thursday afternoon, the grid class was fuller than usual. Interns from the partner hospital had come to observe. Liam was leading for a new child, Theo, an 8-year-old with a weak left kneecap, prone to freezing whenever too many eyes were on him. Maya had the group working with paper stairs tape strips set like low steps, safe for practicing elevation changes. Dr. Brooks stood angled, hand resting lightly on her cane eyes, counting instead of commanding. On the third beat, Theo hesitated exactly as predicted. He froze, gaze drifting. Liam lowered his shoulders, exhaled, tapped his fingers 1 and 2, offering him an exit ramp. Theo nodded, but instead of a half step down as practiced, he lifted his right leg to clear 2 squares. At that instant, the wheel of his quad cane slipped off the taped edge. He toppled sideways. The EVA mat cushioned his hip, but his knee clipped the hard trim. The whole room rose. Maya didn't shout. Don't. She knelt to eye level, pain out of 10. Theo wavered. 4, then 3. Want to stand up or sit and breathe? Sit. Liam stepped half back, not touching, leaving space for Theo to choose. One intern phone slipping from the pocket of her lab coat froze for 5 seconds before running for an ice pack. In the parent gallery, one hand shot up with a phone camera, another pulled it down, don't film, but a shaky frame still made it online that night. Non-directive program lets kids fall on their own. A shock caption pushed by a page built for scheduled outrage. The post spread like dry tinder. They call it autonomy. I call it neglect. By morning, district health inspectors knocked. Emails from the Marshall Fund piled up. The board wanted a media risk review, a safety protocol reassessment. A potential sponsor froze their contract. Ms. Quinn called Grant issue a statement immediately. Something like, the board will reevaluate the method. The familiar language of crisis distance, redirect, blame the system. In the frosted glass boardroom, Maya spread the session log timestamp of Theo's choice. His recorded breath. His pain self-report, the response sequence. Dr. Brooks laid out a chart, minor fall frequency over 12 weeks at Freedom Steps, lower than the average in directive therapy clinics, comparative data anonymized. Zero risk doesn't exist, she said flatly. Walking is a chain of near falls. We teach walking through near falls by self-decision. The difference here, the stop belongs to the child. And the supports mats, breath followers are in place. A commissioner frowned. So, why let him try 2 squares Maya because he chose? And everyone has the right to choose wrong within the safety margin. We design that margin with mats, with people with rhythm. Wrong isn't failure. Wrong is data. Commissioner. But the media Grant cut in for the first time all meeting. If we handle media by bending the method to look safer, we are lying. I won't allow it. Ms. Quinn coughed. Grant turned to Maya. You lead, I follow. Tell me what's needed. The 3-point plan came out fast, like a jazz switch, radical transparency. That afternoon, an open lab parents, press inspectors invited to stand in the room for 45 minutes. No commands, only observe and record. Publish Theo's anonymized log with annotations. Safety Protocol 2.1. Add white flags cards labeled Stop for kids to raise anytime they feel uncomfortable. Update soft stop points on paper stairs. Widen spotter spacing for first elevation drills. Real voices, 3 parents. Theo, and if Theo agreed, Liam, his partner, would explain in their own words. Grant would not speak first. His role was only to reaffirm academic independence remains. Open lab. The gym was crowded but quieter than usual. Observers learning the skill no policy school had taught them how to stand still. Maya clipped a white flag to every child's chair. Try raising it when you don't want to continue. Within 5 minutes, 2 flags waved. The whole room saw the right to stop shift from concept to action. Theo entered with his mother. His left knee was wrapped light. He raised his flag first. Set it down, smiled today. 1 step. Liam nodded, stepped half back. A reporter asked Theo's mother, "Aren't you afraid?" She looked at her son. "I'm afraid every day, but I'm more afraid of someone carrying him up every stair for the rest of his life." Then Liam took the mic, counting words like beats. "Yesterday, Theo fell. I was scared. I wanted to hold him. But Ms. Maya said listen. So I listened. Today we added more mats. We have white flags. Falling is data. Today we walk again." Childish words, but truer to the core than any PR statement could reach. By session's end, inspectors suggested pausing elevation drills pending further review. Dr. Brooks answered with evidence fall rates did not rise when margin was contained, plus 2 spotters for the first 3 sessions. Ban it, and they'll still stumble on the curb outside without mats, without spotters, without waiting. Silence thickened like rain pooling on tin. Grant stepped forward with just 2 lines. The Marshall Fund keeps its 5-year pledge with full non-interference. And if any sponsor demands a change in method for PR, we withdraw. He stepped back. Reporters' lenses slid off him toward Maya Dr. Brooks, the parents, the children, where they belonged. That evening, the Viral Post's headline was quietly edited "Autonomy in Rehab," the line between safety and courage. Not all goodwill, but the strings eased. When she locked up, Maya pinned a fresh white flag to the rule board right under the words, "Follow, don't force." Beside it, Zoe scrawled, "Stop is a step." 1 month after the storm, Freedom Steps entered a public hearing at the City Health Department to formalize the self-agency motor protocol for municipal partners. The chamber was cold in the bureaucratic way. Gooseneck mics lined the table. The wall clock ticked like a bad metronome. The committee, doctors, lawyers, finance officers, a safety specialist had no dancers and certainly no children from the studio. Dr. Brooks opened exactly 7 minutes the foundation of neuroplasticity, non-directive cues, error-based learning, comparative fall data, weekly progress charts. Then Maya laid out the follow criteria. Rhythm. Rights, choosing changing or stopping tempo, belongs to the child tools, white flag hand signals keyword. I changed my mind. Safety by design, mats, spotters, spacing visual anchors. Language of intervention. Avoid result commands. Walk now, use descriptive prompts your shoulders are high, keep or lower. Defining falls, categorize light slip stumble, or intervention level fall with transparent reporting standards. Measurement alongside functional scales add agency moments. Self-chosen stops, self-chosen lead, changes self-chosen requests for help. The safety officer asked, "Isn't this contradictory safety usually means control?" Maya, "We control the context to free the decision. Our safety is in the mats and spacing, not in commands." A rehab doctor asked, "How do you standardize for scaling Dr. Brooks' standardized principles, not motions? Each body is a different score. We provide notes and base tempo, not one forced song." A lawyer pressed, "If a child falls and parents sue Maya," slid a new form forward. Consent 2.1 short readable, no jargon. Clear lines. Stop is a step. The right to stop belongs to the child. Minor falls within the safety margin are part of learning. Parents sign with their child. Grant signs under resource sponsorship without the right to alter method. "We share responsibility," Maya said. "Children aren't test subjects, they're authors." For the live demonstration, the committee demanded absolute safety. Maya refused to promise what doesn't exist. She laid 2 layers of mats, 2 spotters herself, and a therapist, and a white flag in Liam's hand, because today he would switch roles, not leading, but following. Why, one member asked. Liam shrugged to learn. The demo began with no music. The therapist modeled a tiny move, tilt, head, pause, breathe. Liam missed the first beat, raise the flag. The room gasped. The white flag wasn't fear or pain. It was, I want to reset the rhythm. Maya nodded reset. Second round, Liam followed smoothly, then voiced, now I want to lead one beat. The therapist followed. The committee witnessed a new definition of safety, not absence of mishap, but the ability to negotiate mishap inside a well-built frame. The harshest question came from a finance officer. Per-child costs are higher than traditional rehab. What's the ROI grant? Rose 2 sentences. If you count direct cost, yes, higher. But count social cost: parents working more hours because their child is independent, fewer hospitalizations from serious falls, less lifetime reliance on aids, the total is far lower. And we publish data quarterly. No charity halo here, just spreadsheets and steps. The committee recessed 15 minutes. In the hallway, Ms. Quinn tugged Grant's arm, golden chance, to propose a Marshall Ellis Center. Grant looked through the glass. Maya collecting flags in a basket, resting her hand on Liam's shoulder for one beat, then leaving him to stand alone. He shook his head. I won't put my name over their work. You're overdoing it, Quinn muttered. I'm learning to follow, Grant said simply. By day's end, the decision was announced. The city approved self-agency motor protocol for a 12-month pilot with quarterly reports on fall, hoss, stumble, intervention rates, counts of agency moments, and a parental quality of life survey. The most debated clause: each site must form a youth council empowered to recommend schedule, tempo changes, passed 4-3, after one commissioner whispered, "This is the difference." That night, the team returned to the center. Zoe pinned the decision beneath the charter: follow, don't force. Dr. Brooks cracked a bottle of soda, not a champagne, into paper cups. Maya sat cross-legged on the floor with Liam. Dance one, he asked. Maya smiled. You lead, I follow. Liam shook his head, grinned steady in its rhythm. Today, I want to follow. They switched roles. Maya tilted her head, paused, breathed. Liam followed. 3 steps, short, a little shaky but shared. On the first steps, wall 1 square, still empty. Zoe uncapped a marker and wrote small beneath it, place for the first steps of adults. And somewhere just a few blocks away, Kingsley's still glittered. Silver cutlery still played the same old score. But if someone cracked its back door, they might catch a faint rhythm drifting from the community center, a rhythm of those strong enough to follow. The autumn, after the ribbon-cutting freedom steps, was running like a symphony across cities. In Queens, a satellite site at the District Cultural Center opened 2 afternoon sessions for parents working morning shifts. In Jersey City, the Children's Hospital piloted self-agency motor rehab on its recovery floor. A private school in Brooklyn requested internal training to replace command language with the language of following. Zoe's anonymous dashboard added 2 fields: self-initiated stops and self-initiated lead changes. The graphs pulsed like a steady heartbeat, quiet but strong. At a boot camp for hospital teams held in the main hall, Dr. Elaine Brooks opened with 4 minimalist slides. 1. Neuroplasticity requires meaningful signals. 2. Meaning comes from choice. 3. Wrong is data, not failure. 4. Safety. Designing context, not stripping decision. A senior rehab doctor, Dr. Hale, raised a hand. I've practiced for 20 years. You're romanticizing agency. Heel strike must be precise for the brain to learn. Maya smiled, didn't argue. She invited him into the glass studio. Inside, Liam was following a new child, Ruth. No music, just breath. Ruth raised her white flag. Maya nodded, reset the tempo. She whispered just loud enough for Dr. Hale to hear, Your shoulders are high. Want to keep or lower? Ruth dropped her shoulders. Her heel touched down, soft and true, not because someone ordered heel strike, but because her body chose it. Dr. Hale glanced through the glass, muttered, That is heel strike. Dr. Brooks said quietly, And it belongs to her. Early in the week, the hospital's technical committee sent a 10-page questionnaire how to scale and still measure Zoe, opened her reference guide, standardized principles, flags mat margins, follower spacing role, switch protocol, not movements. The KPI set didn't count steps completed correctly, but instead percent of sessions with at least one agency moment number of parents returning, because the child asked to weekly drop in self-reported anxiety. We measure what we value, Zoe said, and we value the right to lead yourself. Upstairs, Grant convened the Marshall Fund Board. Ms. Quinn laid out 3 branding proposals: rename the center, the Marshall Institute build a wall of honor, launch a Rich Men Can Listen campaign. Grant flipped through shut the folder. I won't hang my name on their backs. A trustee frowned. Your name is leverage. Grant exhaled. The only leverage I want is a clause guaranteeing autonomy in every contract. Call it the autonomy guarantee. Donors don't meddle with method. Management doesn't dilute language for PR. Data is published on schedule. He slid his pen across the page. I've learned stepping back is a move. Thursday night, Liam performed a floor drumming piece at his high school auditorium. Before curtain, he winked at Maya. Follow me one beat. Maya grinned. Tonight I'll follow. In the audience, Grant sat mid-row. No speech, no camera phone. He was simply there. When the drums stopped, Liam helped a quieter classmate take the final beat. Grant clapped shoulders, lowered eyes, wet but not spilling. On the way home, he stopped at the small cemetery where Olivia rested. He placed a plain bouquet, spoke 3 sentences into the air. You were right. Connection. I'm learning to follow. And I am sorry. No one heard, no cameras. But the apology seeped into habit the next day in a closed board meeting when the CFO suggested loosening the autonomy guarantee for PR flexibility. Grant refused with the most persuasive line of his career. If we turn following back into control, we're at square one. Another test came from costs. A major donor offered 10 years of funding in exchange for an inspirational storytelling package demand to use words like victory and defeat disability to produce a miracle video. Maya laid out the language principles: no war metaphors, no turning children into stories. Speak of personal rhythms. The donor raised an eyebrow. Then, how do you go viral? Zoe shrugged. Viral isn't our KPI, Grant added. If you need your name on something, I've got hundreds of hallways in my glass towers. They withdrew. Smaller funds, people who read children's notes, filled the gap. The system filtered by footsteps. What doesn't follow falls away. At a quarterly review, Dr. Brooks pointed to the trend line: minor fall, stable agency rising. Shy children especially show faster self-initiated stops. A hospital trustee asked, why Brooks? Because stop is a step has become culture. Kids believe stopping isn't failing. That belief creates a safe environment. Maya added, and adults are stopping too. Doctors stop giving commands, parents stop rushing donors, stop stamping logos on everything. By season's end, Freedom Steps received the Pediatric Rehab Innovation Award. The ceremony was simple. When Grant was invited for a photo, he shook his head. Call Dr. Brooks, Maya, Zoe, and the Youth Council. Cameras clicked, capturing no billionaire but plenty of low-level smiles. Walking out, Miss Quinn muttered, You missed a historic frame. Grant smiled. I'm standing outside the frame exactly where I belong. Late at night, the center's hallways were empty. The First Steps wall had 4 new photos. In the corner, Zoe deliberately left 1 square blank. Maya asked, still saving it. Zoe nodded, for adults' first steps like today when he stayed out of the frame. Maya laughed, nodded. Amid all the data, a habit had crystallized, the powerful practicing how to follow, day after day, not with speeches, but with small decisions that let others lead. Early Winter Freedom Steps hosted its First Steps Benefit Night, its annual fundraiser. Zoe suggested a venue to change the air. The restaurant map on the table lit up Kingsley's a name that froze the room for one beat. Maya looked at Grant. He nodded slightly. If we return, we set the conditions. The list sent to Kingsley's was unlike anything before. 1. Staff may refuse demeaning requests. 2. Music must not drown out voices. 3. Performances are child-led, no slogans. 4. Speeches capped at 90 seconds. 5. A 30-second silent interlude to hear breath. Clause attached. If any condition is broken, the evening moves to the center within 30 minutes. Kingsley's agreed. Mr. Blake was still manager. He met Maya during the site check. The back corridor still smelled of mint cleaner and truffle. Blake hesitated. I was wrong that night. Maya steady. That night, I didn't come to be treated right. I came to follow a child. Tonight, everyone follows the children. Blake bowed his head, his premium service smile gone for the first time. The night unfolded under the same chandeliers. Tables and chairs were turned to make space in the middle, not for adults to parade, but for children to step forward or back. Maya opened with 60 seconds. Tonight isn't an inspiration story. Tonight is rhythm. Dr. Brooks spoke for 45. Stop is a step. Grant closed last, I'm only here. He stepped aside from the mic. First piece, Liam led 3 friends across a sequence of step, pause, breathe, look on bare wood harder than mats. Paper grid tape laid removable, as faint guides, not commands. On the second beat, the speaker's failed music cut, just as on opening day. Liam tapped his toe 3 times. The whole room caught the tempo spoons against glass rims, fingers drumming tabletops, a wheelchair circling napkins fluttering like flags. The silent interlude arrived as scheduled 30 seconds still. In that hush, people heard their own breath blending with the children's, heard cutlery fall. Quiet, heard air leave their lungs. A VIP, a corporate magnate, refused silence. He clapped off beat, shouted, "Give us something fiery." "Come on, Mr. Blake." 2 steps away was torn between soothing a VIP and honoring the condition list. Maya didn't glance at him. She raised a white flag, the first of the night, signaling pause. The room froze. The flag was not fear. The flag was, we reset the rhythm. The VIP flushed about to speak again when Grant stepped forward half a step only, half voice, just loud enough for nearby tables, and the man to hear tonight isn't our stage. Then he stepped back. Blake seized the moment. He reminded the VIP of the conditions with a smile that did not bow. The VIP sat down. The rhythm returned. Midway, a young waitress was told by another guest to walk more gracefully. She stopped, looked at the condition sheet taped in the staff room. Staff may refuse demeaning requests. She returned, "No, I'll walk in my rhythm." Blake saw, nodded, no scolding, no note. A new right had entered Kingsley's old floors, the right not to perform for power. At auction time, Zoe dropped the flashy experiences with the billionaire packages others favored. Instead, rhythm. Scholarships each pledge converted to class sessions for a child with a letter from that child to the sponsor upon their first agency moment. Paddles rose, no cheering, no countdown, just small lights blinking to record. Grant did not raise a paddle. He had underwritten the frame. Tonight, he left the space for others. At the close, Liam looked at Maya and offered his hand just like that first night at Kingsley's. Maya closed her eyes for a beat, placed her hand in his. They moved 3 steps, short, trembling theirs. The room held the silence as agreed. When the music returned, no roaring applause, only a collective exhale like after a long held breath. By the door, Mr. Blake stood straight, writing one line in the shift ledger only he would read, "Learn to stand still." Before leaving, Maya walked the back corridor where she once removed her apron to follow a child. On the wall, Blake had taped a sheet. "Stop is a step," signed beneath by 2 prep cooks, a dishwasher, 3 servers. Kingsley's had at least changed one rhythm. That night, the first step's wall at the center gained a new photo, Kingsley's hardwood floor under crystal light. 2 shadows, one tall one, small cast at an angle. Beneath, Zoe wrote, "Return not to perform, but to reset the rhythm." And in the far right corner, one square still empty, saved for the next first step, whether in a glass tower, a community warehouse, or an old restaurant learning at last to hold 30 seconds of silence to hear breath. The following spring self-agency motor rehab was no longer a strange phrase in the field. 2 public hospitals signed MOUs to scale the protocol. A medical school invited Maya Ellis and Dr. Elaine Brooks to co-author clinical guidelines. It sounded ideal, but the farther things drifted from the original studio, the more Maya sensed the risk. Anything standardized tends to harden into drills, a copybook of beats that makes people count instead of listen. The drafting session opened with a familiar but sharper question. How do we write a protocol anyone can apply without turning "follow, don't force" into "force to follow"? Dr. Brooks smiled thinly. "We standardize principles, not motions." She drew 3 columns on the board: space, language, measurement, and underlined. Space. Designed margins. Flooring type elasticity. Spotter spacing soft stops, white flags. Language. Choice rights, phrasing sensations instead of outcome commands. Logging agency moments. Measurement. What we value beyond function count. Child-initiated stops, child-initiated lead changes, child-initiated requests for help. A vice dean challenged, "Where's the rubric students need boxes to tick?" Maya laid down rubric 0-1 vertical axis, level of self-agency horizontal axis, level of contextual support. Stopping isn't penalized. A stop is a positive score if the child initiates it. The room murmured. One professor frowned. Credit? For stopping, Maya nodded. In the old system, stopping meant failure. In self-agency, stopping is a skill, the capacity to recognize and regulate. Meanwhile, on Grant Marshall's side of the boardroom, another puzzle turning the autonomy guarantee from a goodwill promise into enforceable policy. The fund board meeting opened with Ms. Quinn's slide brand position graphs, showing how not attaching his name reduced recognition. Grant shook his head. Recognition isn't the goal. Changing stance is. He laid out 3 new clauses for every social project. 1. Autonomy. Clause grantees have full method authority. Any media requests from the fund are optional. 2. Mandatory silence. Each project launch begins with 30 seconds of quiet for beneficiaries to speak first. 3. Autonomy index quarterly public reports with agency data alongside risk on safety margins. We'll be accused of showboating, a trustee muttered. Grant smiled. We're accused anyway. Difference is now the numbers stand with us. Another difference, Ms. Quinn herself. Long, the defender of media, shaping she'd been unsettled by a few silent interludes at meetings. In a parent focus group, a mother told her I've never been allowed to count my own breath in a fund boardroom. That night, Quinn lingered in the center's hallway staring at the first step's wall. Beneath a photo of Liam steadying a friend, Zoe had written, "Today, I ask to stop." Quinn whispered, "Stop is a step." By morning, she emailed Grant, "Let's add the silence to all internal meetings." Meanwhile, academia pushed back a rival research team, published a critique agency as hard to measure, prone to bias. Dr. Brooks didn't counter with rhetoric. She released a standardized observation toolkit tested across 3 labs, coding child-initiated stops, lead changes, and help requests in anonymized blurred face video. Raters had no idea which children were from Freedom Steps. Results matched parent logs. One peer reviewer wrote, "The concept of agency has left the realm of rhetoric." Maya pinned the printout between two white flag sketches on the bulletin board. But distance carried weight. Maya began to feel a quiet exhaustion. Schedules workshops, guideline drafts, board meetings, donor calls, training new teams. Zoe noticed first, "Stop." Maya half laughed. "Stop is a step, huh?" Zoe nodded. For adults, too. They agreed to switch roles for 2 weeks. Zoe handled external work. Maya stayed in the studio doing one thing only, listening to rhythm. For those 2 weeks, Maya felt her clock reset. She saw again the smooth pebble she had first dropped in the pond, following a child. One afternoon, Liam entered with a light cane, tired day. He tapped it gently. "Today I follow." Maya grinned. "Then I follow you following." The room burst with laughter. Follow rippled as wordplay. They moved 3 beats short, shaky theirs, then stopped for a single breath. From the sideline, Dr. Brooks wrote in her notebook, "Adults' first steps when grown-ups learn to stop, switch, follow." The crescendo came at the National Pediatric Rehab Conference. Organizers wanted an inspirational keynote about a billionaire's change. Maya set terms no hero narrative, a 15-minute practicum where the committee and audience must stand still. On the big stage, under cold lights, she began, "I am not a hero. I am a follower." She invited a little girl, Ava, onto stage, placed a white flag in her hand. Ava raised it in the first minute. The hall jolted, a keynote beginning with a stop. Maya smiled. "This is the lesson." When the rhythm resumed, Ava switched her lead foot. 3 minutes later, she placed a full step of her own. Thousands of people held silence, then exhaled. In the middle rows, Grant did not rise. He wrote one line in his notebook, "The moment adults learn to be still." At conference's end, organizers asked to trademark Silent Interlude for their event series. Maya laughed. Silence has no copyright. Anyone may use it. But she added, one request: don't use silence as a gimmick. Use it as a commitment to listen. They nodded. For the first time, a soft practice entered hard protocol without losing its soul. Late that night, Maya returned to the center. The first steps wall had filled more squares. The corner frame remained empty. Zoe asked, "How long do we keep it?" Maya rubbed her hands. "As long as we're breathing." At the door, Grant dropped off a package, an autonomy guarantee signed with 6 other social projects, including a silence policy for all company meetings. "I need you to check it," he said. Maya blinked. "You're the owner." Grant shook his head. "I'm the follower here." Then he stepped back half a pace, nodded left. That night, Maya set the package on the desk and blew out the light. In the dark, she could almost hear the faint scrape of Liam's old brace echoing from memory, reminding her everything began with 3 awkward steps. And if any system ever forgot she knew what to do, raise the white flag, stop, reset the rhythm. Late summer, the center held Your Rhythm. Day no press, no donors, just kids, parents, staff, and a few friends. Grant Marshall arrived early carrying a small box. At the door, he met Mr. Blake. Yes, the manager of Kingsley's now there as a volunteer. Last year's benefit night had reset his rhythm. Blake smiled sheepishly. "I came to learn how to stand still." Ms. Quinn was there too, holding a stack of Silent Interlude notebooks to give parents start the day with 30 seconds of silence, set the family rhythm. On the wall, the charter, Follow, Don't Force, had a new handwritten line. Stop is a step for adults, too. In the main room, Liam set up a floor piece he'd composed himself. No braces, his cane leaned against the wall. "Today, I want to follow," he told Maya. "You lead one beat, I lead one back and forth." It was a live version of what they'd built a dialogue in bodies equality and rhythm. Maya nodded. They stepped short, trembling theirs, and stopped when the youngest child in the room raised a white flag to ask for a music change. The whole room changed music. No meeting, no command. A system had learned to listen. In the corner, Dr. Brooks sat with new students. She told science, like telling life, neuroplasticity is like language. Children learn when the words belong to them. Here, the words are movements. She led them to the first steps wall. One square was left blank on purpose. "Whose is it?" a student asked. "Whoever adult just learned to stop," she said. At noon, Grant opened the box he'd brought. Inside was Liam's old brace plated with a thin wash of tarnished silver and mounted on wood. He set it at the base of the wall, not hung high. A small plaque read, "A memory of a limit now retired." Liam grinned. "Looks cool." Maya frowned. On a high shelf it would look grand. Grant shook his head. "Low, so anyone can touch. Remember, it was once heavy." A little girl came to feel it, whispering, "Did this hurt?" Liam crouched to her level. Hurt like shoes too tight. But it helped for a while. And then it was time to take it off. In the afternoon, Zoe invited everyone outside to the small back lot. She set up a wooden frame as big as a window hanging between two steel posts. "If you want," she said, "step through." No one was asked. For a while, no one moved. Then Theo's mother, the boy who once fell, walked him forward. Theo raised his white flag. Wait. He breathed. Now. They stepped through together. After them came Ava, the keynote girl, Ruth, a security guard, Ms. Quinn, Mr. Blake, then Grant. He paused half a beat before the frame stared into the emptiness where orders used to be, then stepped through. From across the yard, Maya didn't clap. She nodded like always. That evening, as the hall thinned, Liam pulled Maya out to the sidewalk. Summer streets dotted with headlights, saxophone from a bar drifting. "Do you remember that night at Kingsley's?" he asked. "Maya?" "I do." "That night you took my invitation," Liam said, half joking, half solemn. "Tonight I invite you again." He held out his hand, no brace, no cane. Maya took it. They moved 3 steps on the warm pavement. Short, shaky theirs. A passerby nearly bumped them, stopped, then smiled as if he'd stumbled on a secret in the street. Inside, Grant stood before the first steps wall. He studied the photos, children's first steps, parents, first pauses, therapists' role switches, silences in boardrooms. He pulled out his notebook, wrote one line simple as the hardest truths: leadership. Knowing when to step back. He closed it, passed through the music room, and stopped for 30 seconds silent. As a promise to himself, listen first, speak later. Late night, the center darkened. Maya locked up, turned away, then turned back, gazed at the empty corner frame. She took a marker and wrote small along its edge, reserved for tomorrow's first step. Not to fill the wall, but to keep a space reminding everyone the story doesn't end with a prize photo or applause, but opens with another step by someone somewhere another day. On her way home, Maya passed Kingsley's. The chandeliers still glowed. She smiled, seeing a small notice taped inside the door. Silent interlude at 7:00 p.m. She didn't go in. She didn't need to. Somewhere inside, strangers were holding 30 seconds of silence to listen. That was enough. At the corner, Liam texted a picture of his new shoes. Not running shoes, just shoes that fit. He wrote, "Not perfect connection." Maya replied, "See you on Rhythm tomorrow." And the story of 3 trembling steps did not stop at 3. It became a language spoken in lowered shoulders, steady breaths, white flags raised at the right time, backward steps when needed, forward steps when invited. In glass towers, community warehouses, old restaurants, people were starting to listen. And once they listened, they knew true power is not in leading first, but in daring to follow the right person, the right rhythm, until they lead themselves. From 3 faltering steps at Kingsley's to the first steps wall, the story showed when adults learn to follow instead of force. When stop is a step becomes a culture, the right to lead returns to those who need it most. Freedom. Steps didn't just build a center, it sparked a rhythm of life where every small decision pause, breathe switch step carries value. The story closes, but the blank frame still waits for tomorrow's first step, and perhaps it could be yours. Question for you. Which moment in Grant Maya Liam's journey struck you most? And this week, where will you raise your own white flag to pause, listen, and reset your rhythm? If this story touched you, please like, share, to spread the spirit of follow. Don't force and subscribe so you don't miss the next first steps.